And welcome to our sixth session of this amazing SEL Day Summit. And this session is called Let's Talk SEL, Turning Language Challenges into Opportunities. I'm Jim Vetter. I'm the Executive Director of the Social Emotional Learning Alliance for the United States. And along with the Urban Assembly and our international partner 6 Seconds, we organized SEL Day working very closely with the Collaborative for Academic Social Emotional Learning and Committee for Children. Right now, there are thousands of people all across the United States and all around the world who are joining together to celebrate social emotional learning today. There are over 3,000 people signed up and many more engaging in other SEL Day activities in their own communities around the world. And so if you've been part of these earlier sessions, you know how we're going to start off. So please go ahead and in the comments, wherever you're streaming this, in the comments right now, go ahead and put in the comments what your location in the world is. Let us know where around the world you are connecting from today, because we've had people earlier from Taiwan, from Mexico, from Italy, from many places across the United States as well. So we'd like to know where you are. So go ahead and just type that in the chat right now. And Daniel will show us that we've got Mississippi here in the house. We have California. And Daniel, if you just show these comments. There we go. We've got New Jersey. We've got Philadelphia and Kentucky and more Philadelphia. We've got Michigan. And go ahead and just keep typing in your locations even as we keep going. We've got Milwaukee is here. Fantastic. SEL Day 2025, our theme this year is Skills for Success, Ready for the Future. And we would like to welcome you to this day, and let's give some thank yous. That if you're looking for this SEL Day Summit, that you can find there are 3 more sessions coming after this one. You can find their descriptions at selday.org/summit. We got New York City here too. Great. New Jersey is here. And selday.org/summit, the summit page is also where you will find recordings of all of these sessions. We've got the recordings that I think about the first 4 sessions today are already posted on the website here. We've got Colorado here as well. So you can find the recordings. And actually for this session, for the Let's Talk SEL session, the slides are already up on that page on selday.org/summit. So if you're interested in the slides as this very powerful session goes on, you'll get them there. But before the session starts, we want to thank some really important supporters of SEL Day. We have returning, and actually you can find more about these supporter sponsors right at the top of the summit page. We have returning sponsors, Lions Quest, Sur Edge, and Antioch University. And also our promoters, Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. The Ruler Program is back as a sponsor, Responsive Classroom and Fly 5, as well as new sponsors, Wayfinder and Attachment Matters. And also lots of folks come together to put together SEL Day. Here is the core planning committee of SEL Day, plus lots of folks at SEL for US, at 6 Seconds, at the Urban Assembly have also joined together to make this happen. And even more important, the work that you're doing to promote social emotional learning in your own communities across the country. You will get tomorrow an email. If you signed up for SEL Day or any of these sessions, you'll get a link to a very brief survey that's just 6 questions long, our SEL Day survey. Please take just a couple of minutes to fill that survey out, because that will help the work that we're doing together, promoting the personal and interpersonal skills that young people need and employers want. So let's go right to this session now. And to kick off the session, I would like to turn things over to Beth Rice from SEL for North Carolina. So Beth, I'd like to turn things over to you. Let's bring Beth to the stage.
Hello, I'm Dr. Beth Rice, and it is just an honor to be with you all today. We are so excited to be here and able to talk to you about Let's Talk SEL. And this is really about turning language challenges into opportunities. And I'm a specialist for state projects at SERVE and one of the co-founders for SEL for North Carolina. And I am joined today by incredible SEL champions, as are so many of you. They are Dr. Susan Davis.
Hi,
Go ahead,
Hi,
Susan.
I'm Susan Davis. I work as a postdoc at UNC Chapel Hill. I am one of the co-founders of SEL for Colorado. However, I recently transitioned to North Carolina and get the opportunity to work with Dr. Beth Rice. So I'm really excited for this session and sharing a few of our nuggets that we've learned along the way.
Thank you. And Danielle Coughlin, Dr. Danielle Coughlin.
Hi, I'm Danielle Coughlin. It's good to be with you all here today. I was previously a classroom teacher and an instructional coach, and I now work in education consulting.
And so glad you're with us. And we are also excited to welcome Dr. Elizabeth McDaniel.
Good afternoon. I'm Elizabeth McDaniel. I was formerly a public school educator and currently the founder and head of school at a private project-based learning school, as well as a consultant for EduThink 21. Thank you for having me.
And we want to also go ahead and share the slides, because we have a really important QR code there. We have a number of resources that we will be sharing with you today as we go about this time together. So if you scan that QR code, or you're welcome to use that bit.ly link, that's going to take you to a Wakelet, which is a cool tool that Danielle shared with us, and it's full of resources. We also have 3 incredible SEL champions who will be on our panel today. We have Latrell Adams, Tom Cesney, and Kelly Gressley, and they're going to be introduced as we get a little bit closer to our panel. And I'll go ahead and pass it to Danielle.
All right. We're going to begin today with an inclusive welcome. This practice provides an opportunity to build community and better understand the climate within that community. We'd love to take a moment to get to understand the community of SEL champions joining us today. So in the comments, please share which number on this number scale of stock image models best represents your current experience as a facilitator of social emotional learning. And do please share why.
And as those responses start coming in, it's so wonderful to see so many of you here, as well as we acknowledge that some of us will have multiple numbers at one time, and that's also okay. So we're definitely connecting with some 2s, Danielle, building knowledge and skill sets to share with others. We're seeing some 3s. Having fun and connecting with others. We're doing that today.
We've got some mixed emotions there with 1 and 8. I'm so grateful that you guys are here with us today and eager to learn about this work and share with us. We ready to get started?
All right, and you can keep those coming in. And I'm going to go ahead and go to our next slide. So we're going to do a little throwback. We're going to go way back to 2022, when some of these headlines that you're seeing on the screen right now were appearing in our media. And at the time, I was leading social emotional learning at North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. Truthfully, I had no idea what critical race theory was. And so I was reading these headlines and I'm curious about what is going on. We were not teaching critical race theory. We were not integrating that as a part of our state level resources, as we were providing resources, professional learning, and coaching around social emotional learning. So I started trying to figure out not only what was critical race theory, but what was going on. And at the time, I was a doctoral student at Vanderbilt's Peabody College, and I was in the Leading and Learning and Organizations program. And we got to do a class called Qualitative Research, which I now just love. And I had an opportunity to explore this novel problem with my two colleagues, Danielle Coughlin and Elizabeth McDaniel. And Elizabeth, I'll pass it to you.
Given this current phenomenon in education, we conducted an exploratory research study. And the primary research question surrounded focusing on the exploration of divisive language's potential impact on both the implementation of social emotional learning, but also environments, including climate and culture. And we agreed first upon an operational definition for divisive language, and then generated secondary research questions and aligned them to three categories, including sources and key messaging, impacts on implementation of SEL, and also those within the environment, including climate and culture. You can take a quick look at our secondary research questions, and you'll see within our findings how they align. So the findings were organized surrounding three categories, beginning with the origin of language. And what we found was the emergent triggering language themes included terms such as culturally responsive teaching, known as CRT, identity, equity, inclusion, and bias. The origin of messaging was found to include state boards of education, school board members, parent coalitions, conservative politicians, as well as media outlets.
The themes we discovered regarding implementation and the environment helped us better understand the impact of the divisive language and how our SEL champion teams responded. So there were many shifts in the implementation of SEL related to both how information was communicated and through which means and platforms that communication would go through. There were also funding losses and even the abandoning of ongoing SEL initiatives. These shifts in response to the divisive language counters what we all know is a research-based best practice in SEL implementation. We saw loss in funding, loss in leadership support, loss in communication, and loss in access to training. And so people just didn't feel safe or supported doing this work. And feelings of fear and frustration have a negative impact on the environment. We understand best practice for implementation of SEL is when leadership creates a positive climate in which SEL is both privileged and prioritized. Mutual trust and open communication is positively correlated with intervention sustainability. Without it, our SEL teams began to feel isolated and sometimes abandoning the work.
So given some of these commonalities that we were hearing, this was from interviewing folks that were leading this across some of our states in the United States. And we were having a conversation with our professor at the time, and she said, you really need to do a media analysis. So that's what you're seeing here on the screen. I also want to say, this was an exploratory study, as what Dr. Elizabeth McDaniel was sharing with us. So in this exploratory study for the media analysis portion, we pulled one news source from each readership, conservative, moderate, and liberal. And regarding total articles, which is the second column you see, there were 43 articles targeting SEL starting in 2014 from the conservative media source, while there were 8 from the moderate and liberal media sources. And those started around 2018 and 2015, respectively. So if you do the math, that's a ratio of about 5 to 1 to 1, just in number of articles. Next, we looked at the substance of the articles, and the subset of the conservative media was connecting what we would call SEL misinformation with broader concepts. And further, we were unable to find this information in media sources that were more read by liberal and moderate readers. We found no research studies on this new phenomenon. And also, I want to be clear, when you see SEL general, so that is, they were not in another column, and SEL/CRT in terms of critical race theory. When the moderate and liberal sources were talking about that, they were not repeating the misinformation. And so misinformation themes would be things like SEL is teaching critical race theory, or that it's a Trojan horse. So like this idea that we're hiding something from people, that SEL is grooming students to be LGBTQ, or that SEL is government overreach.
So as ambiguity leads to the opportunity of mis or disinformation, we want to be sure to define what social emotional learning is. Now, there are numerous definitions available for your organization to use, or you can refine so that you have your own common language. But to be proactive about addressing these challenges, we want to immediately define what social emotional learning is. Some of the angst discovered in the media analysis centers around perceived overstep of schools within the domains of families. Emphasize SEL's opportunity for that family-school connection. Utilize family partnerships with the rollout and ongoing implementation of SEL for added benefits for everyone. You will find toolkits for this and other resources that will help you with this family connection in our Wakelet resources. Now, we know that data is a powerful tool to win allies because ultimately all of these stakeholders want our students to succeed. So be vocal about the evidence in support of social emotional learning. Again, within the Wakelet, please find a link to Castle's resource synthesizing hundreds of independent studies across multiple fields and sources that show SEL leads to beneficial outcomes related to social emotional skills, but also academic performance, mental wellness, healthy behaviors, school climate and safety, and lifetime outcomes. While conducting our interviews with state leaders, it became apparent that policy protects. So if we want to be proactive, we have to utilize our policies. Those with existing policy regarding social emotional learning were able to continue work forward even when climates and leadership shifted. Further, at the more local level, policies supportive of SEL enable teacher training, support for those teachers, and autonomy with integrated implementation. Additional findings from SEL leaders included the value of integrated systems instead of silos. A single SEL team may meet resistance, but collaboration, trainings, and programs that integrate SEL across an organization diffuse that effort. And they're more successful in enabling and continuing the scaling of those efforts. Don't let one person or one team carry the torch. Rather, we should infuse it by all.
And as Dr. Coughlin was sharing, if you encounter these challenges, we have a few reactive strategies with how to overcome some of these difficulties. And first and foremost, combating misinformation by having data and very clear definitions. Also highlighting program product implementation champions, who is doing well and who is doing well at scale. And also utilizing support networks, such as those that are, again, listed within our Wakelet resources, or ourselves. Those of us presenting today are happy to help you move forward in this work. And we do have our LinkedIn profiles posted on the Wakelet, so we would love to connect with you. And then also being very flexible with the vocabulary and name of SEL, and potentially using something like life skills to avoid some of these conflicts?
Thank you so much for mentioning those proactive and reactive strategies. These themes also emerged in my research. In today's polarized political climate, especially in the United States, how we talk about and implement social emotional learning has become just as important as the strategies themselves. It's not just about whether SEL is valuable, because we know that from the research, right? How we frame it, adapt to resistance, and build bridges with families and communities who may view it with skepticism. My case study research explored how family, school, and community partnerships play a role in supporting social emotional learning and mindfulness initiatives. In my case, the Learning to Breathe curriculum, which is a mindfulness-based program. The case study was conducted in a large suburban school district in the Western United States, which is characterized with high socioeconomic status and a predominantly religious population, with 71% of residents identifying with the same religious tradition. Context matters, and it's crucial in shaping how SEL and mindfulness programs are received and implemented in schools. I wanted to really emphasize that the politically conservative communities may be different in how we implement SEL. This research collected data from interviews with 14 leaders within this community, from district leaders to county commissioners to parents, and from document analysis. This program was implemented to address the crisis in youth mental health. The community decided to adopt this program in response. This community highly embraced the Learning to Breathe curriculum, far beyond expectations. 52 elementary schools adopted the program. In this context, rather than being taught by school-based educators due to their capacity for that one more thing, the Learning to Breathe curriculum was instead delivered by Western behavioral health instructors, an outside provider embedded in the community, which was essential for buy-in. SEL programs become more sustainable and culturally relevant when schools, families, and communities work together. Strong partnerships enhance student outcomes and build trust and alignment between schools and the communities they serve. My research sought to answer the question, what elements make family, school, and community partnerships effective in implementing SEL programs, and what strategies foster meaningful collaboration? So, without going too far into the research, as we have limited time, if you can shift, thank you. This research identified several key elements that drive successful implementation in complex settings. First, relationships matter. I'm sure if you're here watching this, you know that that's critical. SEL is the most successful when built on trust-based partnerships between families, schools, and the broader community. These relationships create the foundation for sustainable implementation, ensuring that SEL is not seen as an external initiative, but rather as an integrated part of student success. When families and educators work together, SEL becomes less politically charged and more about a shared commitment to well-being. Language is powerful, and how we frame SEL matters. One of the most effective strategies in my research was strategic communication, presenting SEL in ways that resonate with local values and priorities. Communication looked like social media, translating materials for non-English speakers, toolkits for parents. And an interesting finding was that offering classes to the community on the Learning to Breathe curriculum doubled as a communication strategy as folks shared their understanding and knowledge with others. This increased the buy-in and highly reduced any community pushback. Classes were even delivered in churches. So we have to meet our communities where they are and communicate SEL in ways that align with their existing beliefs and priorities. And it's going to look different in every context, rather than imposing these unfamiliar or this divisive terminology. SEL is not one size fits all. programs that are culturally responsive, meaning they reflect the identities, values, and lived experiences of students and families. When SEL is tailored to those local contexts rather than being seen as a generic or externally imposed initiative, participation and buy-in significantly increases. It's about making these programs relevant and meaningful to the communities that they serve. And then lastly, leadership is key. Adaptive leaders, those who strategically aligned their SEL efforts, both proactive and reactive, with school and community priorities, avoid pushback. When leaders were intentional about resource allocation, messaging, and community involvement, SEL efforts became more sustainable. Local leaders, not just school leaders, became critical in this work. Then lastly, the last slide, you play a critical role in making SEL successful, especially in today's challenging landscape. And here are just some key strategies. SEL thrives when schools, families, and communities work together. Trust and collaboration are the foundation. So engage families as partners, not just participants. Work with community organizations to expand SEL beyond the classroom. Create spaces for educators, parents, and students to have meaningful conversations about social emotional learning. When partnerships are built on trust and shared purpose, SEL becomes a collective effort rather than a school initiative. Culturally relevant SEL is not just about inclusion, it's about alignment and authenticity. Language matters. The way we talk about SEL determines how it's received. If we use terms that feel politically charged or disconnected from our community priorities, using SEL, maybe you can't say that. You have to say something else. Listen to your communities. And then lastly, like I said before, leadership is critical. If we want SEL to be embedded in school culture, leaders must model it first. When school leaders actively use SEL strategies, it becomes a lived experience rather than an abstract concept. So we ask, where are we at now? I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Coughlin.
Right, so we started off this presentation with some headlines from a couple years ago, and now here's one from this fall. As we've learned, SEL has become politicized, but SEL champions continue to move the work forward because the data supports that it helps our learners thrive, and that's why we're all here. So I'd like to introduce you to our incredible panelist of SEL champions. Welcome. So please welcome Tom Cesny, EDD, a dedicated school leader, currently serving as principal. With 14 years of experience in the School District of Philadelphia, including roles as teacher, researcher, and coach, Dr. Cesny brings a wealth of knowledge and passion for educational leadership. A graduate of Penn GSE, he strives to prioritize connection, well-being, and mental health, both in his professional work and his personal life with his wife and his 2 daughters. We'd like to also have you all welcome Latrell Adams, Director of SEL and Restorative Practices at Winston-Salem, Forsyth County Schools, with 20 years of experience in education, SEL, and student support. Latrell has led district-wide initiatives and trained educators nationwide. A 2022-2023 Castle Fellow, she has been instrumental in advancing SEL and restorative practices across various districts. A passionate advocate for student well-being, Latrell is dedicated to creating safe, supportive school communities and ensuring meaningful SEL experiences for all students. And also, please welcome Callie Gressley, recently named Teacher of the Year for Virginia Beach City Public Schools for her exceptional work as an instructional coach. During the pandemic, Callie piloted a mindfulness and SEL program integrating literacy. As part of her coaching role, she focuses on school-wide SEL integration, writing curriculum for her district, and leading professional development. Thank you all for being here with us today. You bring such a wealth of knowledge to this topic. So I'm going to start off with our first question, and it's going to go to Kelly. So as you saw reflected in our research, the topic of social emotional learning and the acronym SEL have gained more media and specifically negative media attention. In your role as an SEL leader, how have you experienced the climate of SEL? And has this changed or varied? And if so, how?
So initially, when I began implementing SEL, it was something that we were desperately seeking for our students during the pandemic and needing an opportunity for those students to address some of those mental health needs. And parents were welcomed it with open arms. I began Mindfulness Mondays during our asynchronous learnings where students could log in and we would practice those SEL habits and develop these skills for them to use. Teachers loved it, parents loved it, it was well embraced. As we moved back into the schools and those academic demands began to increase, there began that pushback of how important is this? Is this something we need to be doing? And is there time for it? However, it proved that we really did need it more because we started to see more of that teacher burnout, and we needed something for the students to use to help themselves through the stresses they were experiencing. So there has been a shift in it. However, the change has not happened for the students. They're still needing it, and so they are still getting it to the best of our abilities, but we're having to embed it in different ways.
Okay, this next question is going to be for Tom. And let's think about the concepts of bonding, bridging, and building together. In social emotional learning, there's the concept and skill of listening to understand rather than listening to respond, and understanding the culture within your community. So, applying these frames and skills, Tom, how do you support others in the skill of listening to understand?
Yeah, terrific question, and great to be here. And it comes down to how you approach structuring how we're coming together, how we're convening, right? And so how do you create opportunities for constructive dialogue that allows people to share, to be heard, and to listen? And if you're, in my role as a school leader, I might have the opportunity to facilitate a session, say, with families or with staff. And so then I'm thinking about, as I'm going to lead them through that experience, what are the ways that we start together? What are the ways that we're setting up protocols as we are together? And then what are the ways that we're ending together? And so even in just starting, what we did here, the inclusive welcome, you might not call it so having a welcoming that allows us all to just connect with each other as human beings, get to know each other in that way. And then within that experience, what sort of steps do we take to illuminate different voices that perhaps aren't in the room by, say, bringing in survey data that we did of the larger community, or having people talk to each other and then sharing out by group so that a single voice doesn't override a larger group, or allowing, something like a 2-4-8 protocol where find a pair, then find a quad, then find 8 of you to share out a singular point. And also, as the facilitator, naming something like deliberate non-response and saying, I'm just going to listen and note take. I'm not going to comment, because sometimes people expect there to be back and forth. And then all of these things allow you to hopefully hear and model for yourself that I'm here to listen. We're here to listen. It's how do you position people to create a shared pool of meaning? Because ultimately what we would hope to then arrive to is that we all do have that shared goal of creating kind, good humans. And maybe as we're hearing this language and we're hearing everybody talk, we can find that point of connection that allows us then to bridge and then build together to move forward in order to, advance to the goals that we all do share.
Thank you
That's
for
great.
sharing that with us. Are we ready to move on to question 3? All right, so we know that trust and relationships are essential for the continuation of the work of building social emotional learning in our learning environments. How have you used your relationship skills in developing partnerships to advance SEL? And this is going to Latrell.
I really love this question, and more so because when I think about the heart of SEL, in my opinion, it all comes down to connection, and connection is one of my core values. And so I have just found in leading this work and doing this work and being an advocate of this work, that trust and relationships are the foundation of meaningful SEL implementation. And so without trust, the work stays surface level. And so it's really important for me to have the work move beyond the surface. And so when relationships are strong, we create environments where SEL can really thrive. And so for me, I've been really intentional. Our team has been really intentional about leveraging relationships to make SEL feel both meaningful and sustainable, because I think sometimes things can be meaningful and not sustainable. And so making sure that it's meaningful and sustainable. And so instead of presenting on SEL as one more thing or another initiative on folks' plates. Our team has worked really hard to support schools with integrating it into what's already happening. Like, what can we do that's already happening? So whether that's through professional development, behavior support, or connecting and integrating SEL into academics, that's where we've seen gains. And so helping people see how SEL really enhances what they're already doing, I feel like that has really impacted their buy-in. And so another big part of our success, I think, has really been partnering with other departments. So we work really closely with our behavior support team, instructional services, student services, and so much more. And so understanding that SEL can't exist in isolation, and that it has to really be woven into the fabric of everything we do as a district and in our schools. And so I think that that's why it's, when we think about relationships, understanding that a team is important, but it's important to also create champions across the district who can speak up when you're not around.
Thank you.
Okay, so this next question is for Kelly and then Tom. So we honor the competing constraints on the teaching workforce, including anxiety, stress, teacher burnout. Teachers in this case are both care providers and those who also need care. So the question is, how have you supported teachers in this work? And specifically, how do you care for your teachers in a way that they find helpful?
So in my role as an instructional coach, and I think anyone working in the schools currently can attest to, one of the greatest changes that we've seen and struggles since the pandemic is the behaviors we're seeing in students. And as an instructional coach, my use of SEL has given students the tools and the strategies that they need to help them manage the feelings they're having, but that in turn supports the teachers move through it. It gives a different outlet for addressing it, and it's not all falling to the teachers. And sometimes it's kind of relieving some of those outbursts that may be happening because we have now named what's happening and we've given some strategies and tools. I frequently hear my teachers referring back to some of the strategies, and we use our habits of mind and we weave it into our instruction so we can talk about resilience and we can talk about what we do when we have some of these feelings. With the increasing teacher burnout and the academic demands that just continue to increase on the teachers, it's a burden. And a lot of our teachers are getting to a point where they just have nothing left to give. So I think SEL is essential in giving students the strategies they need to work through their own feelings and addressing the challenges, which will in turn limit the disruptions to the classroom and the instruction that adds more stress to our teachers. So by embedding all of this social emotional learning, I'm finding that we are inadvertently supporting our teachers through all of these burnouts and these stresses that they're experiencing. Whether it's through the strategies taught or an outlet for just managing the stress, I think we're seeing it benefit all teachers and students.
Yeah, Kelly, Kelly, I would agree with you that taking the approach to help teachers understand that by addressing, you address the root cause of the behavior by teaching social emotional learning skills. Often the big behaviors are just where an ability to cope with emotion the skill hasn't developed yet for coping with that emotion. So I might know that I'm very stressed out today and I need to go get a drink of water or go seek the calm down corner, in my own life, wherever it might be, or tap into that strategy or skill. So how do we teach that to the kids? And then that addresses the root cause to limit some of those then big behaviors that do stress teachers out, right? And then as a building leader, also, I think about how do we just care for the adults? And I think in similar to helping adults understand how to listen to each other, it's by modeling the same skills, right? And in some ways, that's just, first of all, noticing where you are and being with it. And just listening to the teacher to say, oh, it has been a very hard day. This is stressful. And also sometimes not even taking it all on yourself to say, I can fix it, because the demands are the demands. And that's also the hard part I have as a principal. I've been a building leader now for 7 years. I was in Philadelphia, now in Colorado, and the contexts are different, but the demands are the same and ever growing. And so I might not be able to change that there is a deadline for the IEP to come due, or the grades we're supposed to are closing last Friday, but I can listen. I can be with it. And I also can just encourage what we also need to encourage, which is to develop those strategies for yourself, including stepping away, not checking your email, modeling by setting my own boundaries, that I don't respond or send emails on the weekend, right? And saying that that's okay. And then creating space for teachers to have permission to do that with their families by saying, if you wait and don't respond to that family right away, it's going to be okay. And I'll have your back on that as long as it's still reasonable and professional. So again, the similar skills that we are developing in the students, we want to model for our staff and recognize for our staff by, taking that empathetic stance that this is hard. What are some ways that we can help develop some strategies and ways to make it a little bit easier if these things are still what they are, right? And to be reality, because we can't change maybe some aspects of it.
Thank you, Tom. And we're actually going to be coming right back to you with our next one, which is an SEL practice. You mentioned it in your previous response that you're purposeful about using SEL in the way that you open your meetings, the way that you close your meetings. So this is an SEL reflective practice, usually known as thorn, rose, bud, or bud, rose, thorn. We're going to do thorn, rose, bud today. So the thorn being, what has been a thorn in your side? Am I first? Yes, sorry. Please.
Oh, awesome. And I love this. My wife and I actually used to do this together when we were our first year teachers over dinner. So a thorn is definitely just I think the larger context that we are all operating in right now, whether local, and there's certain pieces of that, but then also nationally. And it's made our work more challenging, but then also made everybody's stress levels higher. I think that the bud, though, is meetings like today, days like today, because we can build for a better future. And so it's just maintaining that hopeful notion that from these tough moments, better things can come as long as we remain hopeful. And then if I were to name a rose, I would say it actually taps into probably what I should have mentioned on the well-being one too, which is just staying really in touch with our sense of purpose and why we do this work. And so I search for roses every day, and it's small moments of wins where, the investment of time, the investment in building the relationship starts to develop that change in the child. And for many educators, that's what keeps them in it. And so I always search for those wins every day. They're small roses, but they make all the difference to keep us going for the next day.
Thank you. Thank you to all of our panelists.
Would it be okay if I just jump in and address at least one comment that I see from our audience? Is that all right with everyone? Great. I see a question about what's the best platform to make connections professionally, to network with like-minded SEL professionals. You're here. SEL Day, like you're with like-minded people right now. SEL for US is a fantastic organization. There are organizations in most states. Maybe you're from outside the country. Connect on LinkedIn. There are lots of spaces. I know I'm connected with quite a few folks on LinkedIn. But check out your SEL for US, SEL for NC. I don't know where I would be without my community here in NC, and I've just been here a few months. So please reach out. Thank you.
And Latrell, I think it's also fine if you want to elaborate on what you posted, and then we're going to pop back up the slides because we have some resources we're going to share that will help to supplement these conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. I just put to being in a part of a community. I had the opportunity a few years ago, and I believe Susan had this opportunity as well. We were both Castle Fellows. If I'm not mistaken, that application is out right now, and the deadline has not passed. But that was just a really great opportunity to be connected with individuals across the country who are in this work with you at the same time. And sometimes in understanding that the work ebbs and flows, right? So it may be that you're rocking SEL out right now in your district, and next year it's like you're not able to do as much. And so I think having and being around individuals who are navigating that as well is really helpful. And so I really enjoyed my experience being a Castle Fellow, as well as a community network partner with Castle, because it's just a strong community.
Thank you, Latrell. And if we can go ahead and bring the slides back up, we just want to make sure that everyone has access perfect to this Wakelet. You're going to see a number of implementation guides. There are policy resources in here. Certainly, there are links to the research and evidence base. Also, as our panelists were just talking about and Susan was elaborating on, you can connect with us through LinkedIn. So in the Wakelet, you're going to see LinkedIn resources. We also have a number of different resources that help to really articulate what is social emotional learning, toolkits, PowerPoints. It's already made for you. You don't even have to create it. You can go in, you can add and update if there are some details that you want to have specific for your community, but we would definitely also ask you to check out those resources to help you in this work. And then I believe we have one more slide.
I know that we've mentioned, and maybe if you were in other sessions, there were the 3 signature practices, and the optimistic closure is the last one. And I think it's really important to mention, I was a leader of SEL in a large district, and it was sometimes really challenging. But one of the things we were able to do were to embed these 3 signature practices, because honestly, it's not what you're doing, it's how you're doing it. It's a way to integrate these practices in ways that support your environment. And it doesn't take away from teaching. It doesn't take away from all the academic skills. It's a great way to embed it within the day. I would love to hear from all of you in the chat. One idea or strategy or resource that you might be taking with you as you continue your work as an SEL champion. Share something that you would like us to know.
And Susan, we are already getting some shout outs from Deborah. They love the Wakelet. So way to go, team. It's gold, Deborah says. So thank you, Deborah, for that.
Share any nuggets of wisdom you might like to share with the rest of the group. So glad you like the resources.
Yes. And look at this comment too from Phil. So here's the deal. SEL is human skills. So as long as we're interacting with people, SEL is present. Academic skills, SEL is academic skills. This is not non-academic skills. So if people are using that language, I would encourage you to rethink that, because this is certainly a part of just a foundation for education and development, because schools care about learning and SEL is learning. So you cannot separate that out. Love this. Thank y'all. Yes, Phil, this is how that we're treating each other, how that we're supporting one another, how that we're caring for one another. Huge that parents are a part of this work, as we have said throughout the training today. Yes, we agree about the engagement with parents and two-way communication. Go ahead, Susan, sorry.
I was just going to address, that's why working with our communities is so important. We're not trying to put something on top of our communities. We're trying to work with our communities to find what matters to them. So this work is going to look different in all sorts of contexts. One community is not the same as another. So find what resonates in your community, and be adaptable.
And people are loving the thorn, bud, and rose. And again, you've got resources to help you take and replicate exactly what we're talking about. Thank you, Lisa. And that value of the network and the connection. Any challenge you're dealing with, we got people right here that can help you through that, because we've been there before. Thank you. And I think we've got about 1 more minute. So if there are any other closing thoughts, do this work in community. You are not alone. Thank you all. Thank you, Matt.
And thank you all so much to our panelists, our researchers for that fantastic session. Really helpful. And all the resources that you all shared were really great. That really, really appreciate it. This is not the last session, that we still have more sessions coming. We have 3 more sessions coming in SEL Day Summit. If you're looking for the recordings, if you've missed some of the earlier sessions, you're looking for the recordings. If you were looking for the slides from this session that we just saw, Let's Talk SEL, the slides are already up on the SEL Day website. If you go to the Summit section, you'll see recordings for all of the earlier sessions, as well as slides for this session right now. And the recording of this session will go up just a little bit later today. But please stick around for the other sessions we've got coming. The next session we have coming right at the top of the hour is A City at Hope, Lessons from the New York City SEL Coalition. Really looking forward to this session a lot. So please come and join us. And when you're on the SEL Day website looking at the summit information, also go over to badges, click the login link, create an account, and go ahead and claim the badges that you earned by the work that you've done, the activities you've been doing in your community to celebrate SEL Day and SEL Week. We will see you at the top of the hour for the next session.